2025, temporary lights and road closures and chaos. So my sincere apologies for keeping you waiting. I've come along this morning at the request of Anne and Father Ruslan to talk to you about the Ministry of Consolation. It's something that I have the distinct honour and privilege of leading within the diocese. The network is set up. It was probably established about 15 years ago, I think. And I don't know if you remember that advert for the Remington razor, where he tried it, enjoyed it and liked it so much he bought the company. Well, I started off by doing the training, fell in love with the ministry, and I've now had the distinct joy of moving into leading it. So what is the Ministry of Consolation? We've identified many years ago that part of our challenge of the modern world is that where life and death have been separated, we really struggle with how do we support those that are bereaved, those that are going through grief. And people will often cross the road to avoid bumping into somebody, not through any animosity, but simply because I don't know what to say. I don't know how to react, how to help. If we think about more and more, death used to be part of our life. We used to have the family, mum, dad, granny, granddad would come back home to the family house, would be looked after, would be cared for, would be nursed through their last days. The funeral directors would come along, would take the coffin from the house, would come back for the wake and then off to the Requiem Mass. But that has all disappeared behind sanitised hospital and hospice walls. And it's become disjointed. So what we started looking at is very much in line with the ministry of Christ. Christ met those who needed support, needed nurturing and needed holding. And that is what the Ministry of Consolation is all about. And that's why we call ourselves a ministry, because we try to follow Christ's example of supporting the bereaved, supporting those who have been terminally ill or have been given a diagnosis of terminal illness. So what does it all look like as a ministry? Well, the starting point is that we have 130 people across the diocese who've been through specific training, and we hold that training each year through January and February. And the idea of going through the specific training for those that are interested or called to it, first of all, it's training very similar to the training given by Cruse. I don't know if you've heard of Cruse. They're the national charity for supporting the bereaved. So we go through the listening skills, we go through accompanying people, we go through how do we accompany someone who's been given a terminal diagnosis, how do we journey with people who have been affected by suicide, how do we journey with people that have been affected by the loss of a child. That could be prenatal or postnatal. Loss of a child is loss of a child. And again, that loss of a prenatal child also incorporates holding and helping and journeying with people that have been affected by decisions early in life to go through abortions and those sort of, because at some point it comes back and so many women struggle with that pain and that sense of loss that's almost shunned and rejected by society. But that isn't the message of Christ. That message of Christ is how do we hold and console and journey with people through their pain and their angst. The difference we then bring to the training for these individuals is that, unlike national charities, because we're a church organisation, we're allowed to talk about God. And as we know, as Christians, our faith and our relationship with Christ is so important. It's so supportive, it's so affirming, it's so life-giving. And so being able to refer to Christ and our faith is really important. And with that, we look at what are the real church teachings of. And we go through, and the of part are the big emotive topics that we face in life. So what is the true teaching of the church on suicide? What is the real church teaching around palliative care, euthanasia, and lost track of where I was for a second, sorry, of funerals versus cremation. Because so many of us are just a little bit confused, and in those moments of angst and uncertainty and loss, we can end up building so much extra grief on ourselves unnecessarily by not realising what the church actually teaches. So we also incorporate the real church teaching on those big topics. And then finally, because it's a ministry, because we're trying to follow the example of Christ, it's also important we look at how do we support, how do we hold, and how do we journey with our bereavement befrienders. And we call them befrienders, not counsellors. We're not trained clinicians. We're not qualified in terms of being a psychiatrist or a counsellor. We are there to journey alongside the individual. So we're bereavement befrienders. In order to be qualified as a bereavement befriender, you complete the course, and at the end of the course, Bishop Richard will then commission you onto our Ministry of Consolation. The commissioning is time-bound, because we all know, don't we, that you volunteer to do something in the church, and before you know where you are, 25 years later, you're still doing the flowers, the tea, the coffee, the car park, the hymn books, whichever it happens to be. So we put on there a timescale of 2 years. And the idea of that timescale isn't that you then have to go through the course all over again and to re-qualify, as it were. It's to allow for life happens, things come along, grandchildren become a priority, children become a priority, stuff happens. So at that 2-year point, you have the opportunity of saying, yep, I'd like to carry on and sign me up for another 2 years, or actually it's a chance to just gently step back without that sense of guilt that we always have within the church when we're involved in anything and we're finding in a conflict. So that's one aspect of the Ministry of Consolation. And the idea is that once qualified and once commissioned, if somebody in the parish then needs to have someone journey with them, that person comes alongside and journeys with them. Whoops. Is that running out of time? That's the hurry up moment. But that's not the sole output and sole focus of the Ministry of Consolation. In addition to that, we also have group activities, and for that, you don't need to complete the course, you don't need to complete the training. The reason in the wonderfully litigious and insurance-driven world we live in, by completing the course and being commissioned, you become part of the diocese pastoral mission, and therefore you're covered by the diocesan insurances. So that's a bit of the purpose behind the training as well. So it protects the guys that are coming forward to be involved in that sort of thing. Within the parish environment, the other aspect of the work that's done is manifold. The key parts that you get involved in, though, we have an awful lot of bereavement cafes that are springing up around the diocese. Last count we had 31. Now going back to my opening gambit, loss, bereavement can be very isolating, can be very lonely. So we bring people together in cafes, and you've got a glorious hall next door. Whether that be once a week, once a month, once a fortnight, whatever works for your parish. It's about bringing people together just to spend time with each other. And that could be sitting there talking about the journey they're going on in terms of their loss and their grief. Or it can just be simply getting together and meeting and talking about life, the news, what's going on down in the local high street, etc. It's that sense of coming together and finding peace and comfort with other people. In fact, there's a couple that are just not far from here. We've got a very well organised and run one cafe that's going in Ashtead. And if it's something you would like to set up, I know that the team there will be very happy to spend time with you and talk you through the how, the where, the what and the whys of that side of things. The other big part of the work that we do with the Ministry of Consolation is supporting the parish priest with funerals. So during lockdown, we learned how powerful stewarding can be. So by coming along as a member of the Ministry of Consolation to a funeral, you're able to receive the mourners who, let's be honest, a lot of them don't come to church. A lot of them are lapsed, or a lot of them have no faith at all. And coming into a church environment can be very intimidating. On top of that sense of loss and confusion and bewilderment that goes with losing someone important in your life. So the Ministry of Consolation come along as welcomers, as stewards of funerals to help people, take them to the appropriate seats, to talk to them if need be about why is it you stand up and then you sit down, and am I supposed to, and where am I going to, and what's going on. So it's about helping them through that journey. And in itself, that journey also becomes a great way of reaching out, because we're showing that people who come along to the funeral are part of our parish family, are part of the church, and that we're here for you, and that we're here to journey with you, and we care about you. And it can be a gentle way of seeing people come back into the church family. In addition to that, we also have these little bereavement cards, which I'll send along electronically to Father so you can print them off. But about 2 weeks after the funeral, we send these cards out. And the idea of these cards is just we're really sorry that you're going through such a really hard time. And if you'd like to have a chat, or you'd like to meet up for a cup of coffee or a tea, then do contact us, because you're part of our parish family. And the beautiful affirmation that can bring as well during those times of isolation, loneliness, concern is so strong. It really is so strong. And then the last sort of piece of work that we get involved in, we also have a leaflet, Preparing Your Funeral. And many parishes have held gatherings in the evening, which sounds a little bit odd. Not a celebration, but a coming together. And this will take you through step by step every aspect of your funeral. And the reason that we've come up with this as an idea is twofold, really. First of all, let's be honest, a lot of our sons and daughters, grandchildren, are not coming to church. And the thought of pulling together the sort of funeral that mum, dad, granny or granddad would like can be quite intimidating for them. And in the same way, as a granddad and a father myself, the thought of my children arranging my funeral for me, and none of them go to church, sadly, is a bit of a worry. Are they going to get the right things? Are we going to have a requiem mass, or is it going to be a quick in and out, thank you very much, off we go? So it takes that sense of angst and worry away from the family, and it also builds in a certain sense of peace for us, knowing that we will have the requiem mass that we want. So coming together in the evenings, afternoons, whatever, and just as a group to come up with What is it you want in your funeral? And you can go through the readings, you can go through the hymns, and they're all there. There's also some really practical things in here, so outlining the funeral directors that we want, outlining where the will's kept, and all the practical, pragmatic stuff. So it's all in that one document. And then that document can either be left in your home filing cabinet, it can be left with the parish priest, or it can be left with a member of the family, so that everyone knows exactly what we want. So that, I guess, in a nutshell, is the mission, the ministry, and the hope that the Ministry of Consolation tries to bring to what is a really tricky, painful, and confusing part of anyone's life. Thank you.